Today is a digital lesson, and I'm going to show you how I draw Goofy based on an old Goofy rough model sheet. I start with the circle for the head and start roughing in his mouth and snout, and then here's the neck. Trying to get that angle of action, even though he's just standing, it's kind of an action standing pose, you might say. So there's the top oval for the top of his body and a bigger circle for his pelvis area, and then figuring out where his feet go. I don't draw Goofy all that much, so I'm not that familiar with the character, but I've been looking at him all my life, I guess, so really no excuse. Rough in where the hand will go on near his chest and the other arm sticking out, and I just use lines to do this, and rough shapes, and put in where I think things are going to go. And I go back up to the shoulders and put in the top of the coat. This is the collar on his coat. And there's my assistant, the kitty, going out of frame. So now let's look at the eyes as I rough in where the eyes are going. And looks like he just turned around to look at something. And I'm not flying through this. There's no reason to make it so that I have to get this done in quick, fast, and hurry. A little bit of a smile on him. He keeps his mouth closed, so we're putting little chin underneath. The lines, ridges across his nose, his snout, as it were. I didn't add his buck teeth in there. They're kind of too small a detail to worry about. But his ear is out because the implication is that he just turned his head to look. And I've got his ear flap up higher than in the model sheet. Sprigs of hair coming out of the top of his head. And now I'm putting in the solid forms of his arms. And the other arm, rough in where the thumb goes. So I'm drawing this in Rough Animator on an iPad. My iPad's a couple of years old, but I think it's a 12. So it's not the largest iPad, but it's got a good size memory storage on it. And at some point we'll go through how to do an animation using Rough Animator. I seem to have given him actual shoulders, which it seems he doesn't really have on the model sheet, but I don't think that we'll get arrested for doing something a bit different. And now the bottom of the coat describes the roundness of him, and this is how we put across the illusion of him being a solid round object down there, as I added a bit more details around his collar. So they changed Goofy's character in the early 40s. And whereas he used to stand and he reflected his name being Goofy, so his posture was really bad. He was slouched over all the time. Once they started doing those how-to Goofy cartoons, they changed him so he had more of a regular stance, like a person with a lot of confidence. And it's totally different than what Art Babbitt did in the 30s. There I'm putting in the bottom of the shoes, and the heels for those shoes. I think it's I've got most of the details in there, so I'm putting in some few darker lines here and there. Here I'm going to add in the gloves on his left hand, coming up to his jacket, and a little shading to show the inside of the sleeve. So now let's see what we want to do. I think I added a layer so I can do the cleanup on the next layer up. And then I enlarge the picture so I can see it better. And start cleaning up. So Rough Animator is pretty good at the cleanup. I'm not getting quite the line that I would get if I was doing this in pencil, or if I was doing it in Photoshop, but it's a good solid line. I take a lot of liberties with the model sheet. I don't pass myself off as a photocopy machine. So if somebody looks at my drawing and says, well, it's not exactly like the model. Well, comes the breaks. Here I'm describing his muzzle, his snout, as it were. So he's got a bit of a color separation around his eyes, which continues down to his mouth. Get that collar in there. Comes down to a V, and now here's shoulders and chest. Shoulder. Need to move this up a bit so I can get in there. And the rest of the sleeve of his right arm. That line should have curved out, not in. So with this, I'm just taking my time. There's no big hurry. I'm not trying to get this ready for shipping or sent off to the next department to do the rest of the drawings and a bunch of in-betweens. Which is a good thing, because sometimes you just need to do a drawing and just relax doing the drawing. You don't have to act like this is life or death and get this done within the next minute and a half. Let's move this drawing up. And still trying to maintain some solidity to his pants and his shoes. As we come down to the finish, get the pants bumps and wrinkles in there. So I hope you liked our Goofy demonstration, or demonstration on how to draw Goofy. Come on covering his nose a little bit there. And the bottom of the sleeves. So there it is. And it looks like you just put a ground line behind him so he's not just floating in air.